And it was a pretty tense, uncertain, not so promising, and quite of a stressful year for Las Vegas. People are not so optimistic about the area as much as they used to. They're not happy with the management. They're not really seeing that the future is looking pretty bright. They're tired of the establishment. But yet the good news is a lot of people are definitely waking up. Now in this video, I'm going to be talking about some of the predictions I'm going to be addressing regarding the economy, particularly the hospitality sector, real estate market, but more importantly, what the society is really going to be as a whole, as in terms of current affairs, how the condition of our area is going to be, obviously the political scene, things going to get really tense, people going to fight back, how the election is really going to turn out. So let's start off with the casinos. Now, as you know, in the last few decades, we've seen a lot of these companies buy each other up. The service quality has come down. You've seen the crowds have gone downhill. You have seen the nickel and diming is just really out of control. Parking fees, I mean, we've just seen Planet Hollywood, obviously, now charging for parking, all these new other fees I've heard even regarding the pandemic. It's just absolutely insane. And the question is, where are we headed? I believe for 2022, the problems are just going to likely get worse. There's going to be more nickel and diming. But then again, if it gets really out of hand, they may just lower room rates and just to see how this all comes to play. Now, the issue, of course, is that we have to really understand if the economy is not looking really good because we're seeing the ending of the stimulus, unemployment insurance, pretty soon people are going to be maxing out of their credit cards. How are people going to really come? And we're seeing a lot of people, drop out of the labor force, mass resignations. Where are people going to get money? That is what's really, really the question. And if there's not enough dollars, because remember, a lot of these hotels, they're not running on good occupancy. I mean, I've heard reports that, oh, it's doing so well, it's so crowded, but, you've seen many of my live videos, it's pretty dead. And I rarely would see this kind of dead crowd when I was there many times in 2018 and 19. So clearly, what this tells you, that things are not back to where they were. And it's hard to believe that it's going to really come back because it's not just the economy, but what about the long-term effects of the the shot, which if I talk about, YouTube is going to take down this video. You know what I mean. It's going to affect the tourists, employment. Remember, these casinos, they've been pushing these vaccines, and I'm going to get to that later on. And not to mention, how are the visitors going to come here? Are they going to be able to fly here? Are they going to be able to drive there? Think about it. This is very, very important news. And if this starts to happen, then I think you're going to see some signs that they're going to have to roll back what's really going on, their pricing. And it's not just the fact that it's the nickel and diming. It's just the crowds. Just look at it. It's just a lot of violence and chaos. And you see that security and police, they're going after things that are not so relevant, are not as important. They're not really making their area as safe as it used to be. And I'm just hearing this. Yeah, 2 million have because of the shots. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, I had a feeling it was just 200,000, but who knows? The fact that you're being censored, it's no surprise. And man, if it's 2 million, maybe this is why they just reported that the population of the U.S. barely changed. Maybe this is why they're rushing to pump in all these illegals to keep their populations all pumped up. Although I'm probably going to show you some reports that actually net immigration actually fell in the state of Nevada. But the crime is getting out of control. Now, although it has tapered off the violence, it is still absolutely a problem. And I think it's going to scare a lot of people away. Now, as far as predictions is concerned, there is absolutely got to keep in mind that they just restarted the Fontainebleau Hotel, which was formerly named the Drew, originally the Fontainebleau. We're going to see if that pick up. I'm optimistic that's going to do very, very well. I do believe that there's going to be more developments coming along, perhaps more action. You know, we see all these new developments, the MSG Sphere, the Majestic, all these new other hotels. There's all these new the stadium plans, you name it. And we've seen the Rio got sold, Cosmopolitan, on the other hand, got sold to the giant MGM. And then the MGM, they also sold the Mirage. And by the way, I'm not really a fan of replacing the Volcano Show. I really like it with a huge guitar-shaped hotel. Look, if the Hard Rock was such a good idea, for heaven's sakes, they wouldn't even rebrand their hotel to the Virgin. Think about it. I don't think it's a good idea. I honestly think they should just build a new hotel or buy a property and build an entirely new hotel. As a matter of fact, there's land across the street or the boulevard from Circus Circus and the Resorts World. Why don't they do that? Or there's land between the Treasure Island and the Resorts World. They should do that. It's just an empty lot just sitting there. Do something, or maybe I will in the next few years if my investments are going to keep catching up. But we'll talk about that in another video. I do believe they're going to be pushing, obviously, a lot of new stadiums, new event projects, absolutely. But is there going to be such an eager to start on these projects? It's hard to say because a lot of people are very uncertain about the economy. And we can know that the way the Strip is being managed, it's not doing very, very well. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised in these tough times that downtown, in relation to the Strip, wouldn't be doing as horrible as it should. Because when I go to Fremont Street, there's still a good number of crowds. Absolutely. So there's all these different things that you have to consider. And, you know, this downtown, you don't really get nickeled and dimed. But it's just the crowds are not that great. You've seen my live videos. It's just really a decay in society. Now, let's move on to the current affairs political scene. Now, we all can agree that the shutdowns, the lockdowns, the mandates, whatever, first of all, they're not laws. So it's not like we're supposed to follow them. And number two, the fact is that people are getting really frustrated. They're just really, really angry. I've shown you some polls how the nonpartisans are not happy how Sisolak has handled the pandemic. And by the way, we know Sisolak is just a puppet. We know that he's controlled by Wall Street elites, deep state, the casino elites, Jim Murren, which they're pumped by these tools, foot soldiers, a lot of these NGOs like Culinary Union, because that's what's really the problem. These are the ones who pumped, by the way, Harry Reid, which, you know what just happened to him a few days ago. Then again, you have to keep in mind, and by the way, going back to the economy, I think there's going to be some signs that we're going to start seeing that these major casino giants are going to start breaking up, or some push or something like that. And speaking of that, if things get really out of hand, the truth is going to come out. Social media is exploding. They're not going to be able to censor the truth. And they're getting harder. I mean, they're meddling around with my Facebook account. It's just absolutely, because I posted a Sam Dixon interview in the Facebook page of Southern Poverty Law Center. But anyway, I was kind of like asking for it. The truth is going to explode. People are going to know the truth about all these things, the vaccines, the mandates, the real agenda, the so-called Great Reset, or whatever you want to call it. What happened in Route 91, election fraud. They're not going to be able to hide it. And people are angry. And as temperatures begin to warm up, I mean, not right now in the holiday season or when it's like 25 degrees outside, but as temperatures warm up, there's going to be a lot of anxiety. There's going to be a lot of pushing against these elected officials. The truth is going to show. They're not going to be able to hide it. They're running scared, and you've seen it in these videos, and things are going to get really, really shaky. And as a matter of fact, speaking of the truth, I wouldn't be surprised if there is going to be an election audit in the state of Nevada. Because we're already starting to see a lot of evidence creep up in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, all these other states, and it's only a matter of time it's going to come here in Nevada. Now again, do I think it's going to be very, very soon, next month? I doubt it. I think Texas, Florida are going to have audits, and then it's going to start coming in to definitely Nevada. But we know with all this pressure, the politicians can't take it anymore. And as we're seeing that a lot of Congress people, and I just wanted to read this comment, yeah, it's becoming so liberal. Look, it's not liberal, it's just authoritarian. I know many left-wingers, progressives, they're tired of all this either. It's just the fact that it's just a corporate fascist system, and they've basically accelerated their efforts because they know that our efforts is growing, and they're trying to push back. This is happening all over the country, folks. Don't think this is just an issue. I mean, everybody's having problems with practically almost every part of the world. People are not happy where they live, whether it's here, New York, Toronto, London, Tehran. Do you think my family's happy out there? No. Do you think people are happy in Tokyo, Shanghai, Sydney, Australia? Are you kidding me? This whole world is in literal chaos. But we're seeing the truth bomb. We know the powers that be are panicking. We know that they're feeling a lot of anxiety. Their plans are not going what they're supposed to. And speaking of liberal, how the hell is it so liberal when we have among the, lowest vaccination rates in the country? And get this, we're largely a service sector economy. I thought if we had all these, Democrats, running the state, we should have very high vaccination rates, but it's not. It shows the true colors of the people. I mean, the casinos have been pushing their employees to get the jab, and the vaccination rates are not as high compared to other states. So that's the true election that you can count on, and they are panicking. And when the truth comes out, and you know what has been happening as a result of all of this, and by the way, speaking of stocks, I'm going to get to that in a future video in several hours. They're going to get a lot of pain. They're not going to be able to hide the effects. If you know what I mean, I can't talk about it. And it's only a matter of time they're going to resign. You're going to see mass resignations. You're already seeing a lot of people in Congress not be able to run for re-election. If you look at the legislature, you're going to see more people saying, I can't take it anymore. I'm not going to run for re-election. And you're going to see many people, I would be surprised with especially the Clark County Commission. And again, that county needs to be restructured or broken up. They're going to start resigning. And I wouldn't even be surprised if some of them get prosecuted. This is getting really, really out of hand. And by the way, I messaged one of the relatives. His name is James Gibson. I believe he's the nephew of Commissioner Jim Gibson, the former mayor of Henderson. These people are really in trouble. And I'm especially talking to you. People like Tick Sickerbloom and Justin Jones. At least, hey, they're willing to talk to me. At least they're not like these other scums who just run away and spread BS gossips about me. So we are in a very, very critical position right now. And I think Sisolak's going to be in serious, serious trouble. He's going to be in miserable panic when all the truth of all this comes out next summer or so. And this really leads to me with a lot of things that's going on. And by the way, remember, this isn't just the politicians. And I don't mean to parrot this. These are these large corporations, the casino elites. They've been pushing this crap. They've been locking down. They've been pushy about the masks. They've been donating huge sums of cash into these politicians. This is why this country has been shifting more to the Democrats, because the Republican Party is not so much in line with these large corporations. Now the Democrats, they have lots and lots of identity politics. This is why they're pushing this mass immigration. No duh. And you're going to see a lot of prosecutions. In fact, many of them in jail. Not to mention, we have a history this year and years before of many Nevada politicians were disproportionately more likely to be jailed. These casino elites are going to be held accountable. I wouldn't be surprised if they start resigning. A lot of NGOs, Culinary Union, there's a side of me that tells me their last days are near. NGOs like Mi Familia Vota, Plan, you name it, they're going to be in trouble. Even take a look at the home builders. Were they pushing this crap? Real estate developers, you've seen my protests. They're definitely in serious trouble if they've been promoting this. Yeah, the feds might push for travel passes. Yeah, they're already talking about giving vaccine mandates. Dr. Fauci, which is probably the largest piece of crap in this entire earth, along with Bill Gates, they're pushing for all this. And you know what? Not only that they're going to push it, but I say, you know what? Bring it on. Bring it on. Because you know what? It's going to make our voice, our resistance even stronger. We'll be able to push back. They'll hurt. We'll see what this whole agenda, and it's going to add more pressure to these people. As people lose their jobs, they can't pay their bills. These politicians, it seems like they're done. It's only a matter of time. Absolutely. Now, again, will this exactly go our way? It's hard to say. Because remember, with the mass media, and by the way, we need alternatives not only to national news, we need alternatives to local news. News 3, channels like 8 News Now, I don't trust these bastards. The Sun, Review Journal, forget these people. Forget them. We need real alternative news. It's up to you that channels like this spread the word. Or you know what? Pretty soon Truth Social is going to be coming out. I hopefully can explode in that channel because YouTube, forget about it. I heard I've been shadow banned. It's no wonder why I haven't been able to get anywhere. You're going to see a lot more false flags. Very likely. There's definitely going to be some trigger events, some scare tactics, some distracting elements. Because once their narrative is gone, who knows? They're probably going to be pushing massive amounts of riots of what's going to happen. Absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised. And who knows? Maybe we can see the military step in. I'm not sure. People start fighting back. I mean, look, a lot of the propaganda, Russia collusion, January 6th, all these narratives are falling apart. I don't think people are going to be naive enough to believe in this stuff. But as far as the 2022 election, and Omicron, by the way, you know, people aren't buying into this. These neighborhoods, we have not seen a decline in crowds. You have to keep in mind that the Democratic Party has changed quite a bit. Okay, some people say the new people are the same old. It's hard to say. Because the leader of the Nevada State Democratic Party, Judith, I've met her in person many times. She's a very sincere woman. We've had good conversations. Remember, this whole issue is not between left or right, Democrat or Republican or just, you know, ideology. It's just us versus the establishment. That's just what you think about it. So Judith has taken over. They call her Democrat Socialist, and it's no longer the Reid machine, the Reid staffers. So not only he just passed away, but his people are no longer running the party. And I do believe that that's going to affect the election results. Now, keep in mind, they moved their forecasting for Sisolak's re-election to lean or Democrat to toss-up. And at this rate, I think we're going to see likely maybe lean Republican. Now, many of the polls are showing that people who are contending, Dean Heller, Lombardo, they're ahead by 7 points. This is certainly much better what we were looking at 16 and 18 and 20. Absolutely. There's just no question about it. And as far as those Republicans, let me tell you this. The person who I have a lot of respect for is Joey Gilbert. Now, first of all, this guy is from northern Nevada. I have more respect for the northern politicians than I do in the southern. They seem to be less corrupt. So I think that would be a great thing. The issue with Joey Gilbert is he's not doing well with the over 45 and over crowd. He's doing well with young adults like myself because he's able to attract the young vote, and we're really sick and tired of the mass shutdowns and everything. So Gilbert, you need to put some big signs in Sun City, Summerlin, and Anthem. You have to get your word out there. The problem is a lot of people don't know who you are. If you can get your word out there, and you've still got about 5-6 months left, you can win the primary. Because, look, Heller, Lombardo, it's really another term of Sisolak when you think about it. It's just a fake. Because this is why Sisolak is probably not really panicking. Because he knows he can just put another Republican Sandoval type clone. And by the way, he's been pushing the vaccines. I think he's going to be held accountable. And by the way, even if these people get elected, I think the following year, there's going to be a lot of truth that's going to essentially come out. And Hellers and Lombardos, they're going to be in serious, serious trouble. We're going to see a lot of even Republicans resign too, because the party is changing, absolutely. But if this trend continues, if Sisolak is going to be in trouble, it's likely we're going to see a Republican flip. And not just in the governorship, but perhaps in the Senate. But it all depends. It all depends. If election fraud is extreme, he's likely going to get another term, Sisolak, and Cortez Masto. If election fraud is handled or it doesn't go as bad, then it's likely Republicans are going to take it. Now, it depends on who the Republican candidate is. Remember, Republicans can be part of the establishment. Maybe they want to take those terms to kind of cool the anxiety of people like us, but we're not falling for it. This is not 2010 or 2014 anymore. We've learned our lesson. We have this way to communicate to find out exactly what's going on. But remember, the real game changer is Joey Gilbert. And I have to interview him. I have to definitely ask him some questions. Okay? Now, a lot of you are saying, well, there's going to be Dominion machines, there's going to be election fraud, and it's not going to happen. However, keep in mind, though, that if you look at what just happened in Virginia and New Jersey, I mean, they were pretty close. Virginia, it was a good surprise. And everybody knows that, and I'm going to read that, Republican Party is in chaos. Look, I think the chaos is already toning down. I mean, we're already seeing Jesse Law gaining some momentum. All these Kerry Buck people, I heard they've lost in court. So as far as I know, I think that the chaos is already dying down. But again, we don't really need them. I think a lot of people are doing things in other means to get their candidates elected. However, keep in mind, even with the rigging, you may argue, Virginia was able to flip. Okay, and we all know Virginia is a bluer state than Nevada. Now remember, the problem with Nevada is that if one or two counties don't do well, it can't do very well for the state. Virginia is like a whole different ballgame. Remember, Nevada could use this. They have a lot of independent cities, so city-county structure. But as far as I know, if the momentum is growing along, it is likely we're going to flip. But remember, we have to get non-establishment candidates coming along, not just in the governorship, but in the assembly. And if these trends continue, it's likely we can even get that the assembly and the Senate are likely going to flip. Okay, and remember, it's if they're working for us, that's what matters the most. It's not mainly the party affiliation. Look, there's a lot of shows that's saying that the Democrats are already collapsing. It's just absolutely horrible. I mean, the Culinary Union is not able to pump as much as they used to. In fact, this is why they've tried to pump in the mail-in votes. It's absolutely very important. But last but not least, Biden's approval rating is around 35%. Some say around 27 or 28%. If current trends continue, which I do believe they will, we can see Biden's approval rating in the 20s and maybe even the teens. And who knows if they're still going to be in office. Okay, we don't even know. It could be a Democrat, not even Kamala Harris, or we could see you know what I mean, come back, which I'm not going to say because, well, YouTube will. That's a factor. And this is why I believe this will be much, much different than the red waves of 2010 and 1994. But other than that, we're going to see a lot more mass protests. We're going to see a lot more pushback. There's going to be excessive amounts of lawsuits. And there's going to be a lot of shaking up with the courts. Again, I don't really trust a lot of the courts. I think a lot of the courts here, the Justice Center, they are compromised. And there's going to be a lot of shaking up. Let's not forget the school board, because their meetings are like a circus. And hence, again, this is why the county needs to be broken up. Now, moving on into housing prices, and I think this is a topic in my future video, but I want to specifically talk about housing prices in Las Vegas, because this is one of the factors that's very important in Vegas and one of the drawbacks in Vegas, because this year, man, it wasn't a really good year for affordability, despite the joblessness is out of control. What we're going to be finding out, obviously, because mortgage rates are not at all-time lows, it's likely that they're going to bounce up. And we're hearing a lot of reports that the Federal Reserve is finally going to be raising interest rates. Now, if you recall, in 2017 and 18, mortgage rates were going up, okay? And the Las Vegas housing market was slowing down. In fact, there were signs showing that prices were about to fall. But that did not happen because 2019, with some pressure, buying of MBS, mortgage-backed securities, that started to change. And now with the forbearance and homes not listed in the market, we're starting to see the prices are escalating really, really high. Now, it is slowing down, and we do believe higher mortgage rates is going to slow down the rate. And I wouldn't be surprised it's going to start peaking up. Now, do I think prices are going to come down significantly for the year? No. In fact, I'm still believing that home prices are going to be higher within the next 12 months. But can prices start falling? It's no surprise, because a significant increase in mortgage rates can really put a dent in the housing market. And remember, from what I've seen, inflation adjusted, our prices are still lower than where they were in 2006. And by the way, mortgage rates were then higher back then. Keep that in mind. And it's not like our wages are going up tremendously. This is the thing you've got to understand. And now, the duration of a typical home in the market has been increasing in the last few months because the forbearance is actually ending. And not to mention, home builders are building more supply. Now, speaking of the home builders, because I'm very critical about what they're doing, okay? And let me just read this comment right here. Even if they raise interest rates, they only raise 1/4 point. Yeah, 2%. Yeah, it's going to have a big dent. Absolutely. People are going to be shocked. This is not going to be exactly parallel, similar, but not exactly like the 2000s decade. And they're just going to still, going back, they're going to build the same old cookie-cutter, low-quality homes with their useless gated HOA amenities. But again, we're going to see more supply. Now, I do believe that the median home size is going to start to contract. It's going to start coming down, not just because affordability is going to be an issue, but it's also the fact that, well, you're seeing all these other factors. You might see some increase in first-time home buyers. But remember, people who are under 40 years old, they're a very small minority of buyers. People like me, we could still buy homes in Vegas, but we choose not to because we know it's overinflated. When a 3D printer can build these homes with materials for like 100, 120 grand, why the hell should you have to pay $400 and something thousand? Where the money is going? Yeah, there is a lack of inventory. Home builders cannot keep up. Well, that's a pretty good point. But again, the problem with that argument is that demand is not what it used to be from last decade. Population growth is not as high. I'm going to do a video about that later on, where Nevada is no longer even in the top 3 fastest growing states anymore for obvious reasons. As far as I know, unemployment is going to remain high. Now, of course, the unemployment rate is likely to go down. I don't believe that, it is an accurate measure of employment. Now, it can go up. Maybe they can just bring up one variant, although people are not really buying into this stuff anymore. The real, again, employment figure you have to look at is the labor force participation rate. That is very, very important because between the ages of 25 to 54, because it's really at all-time lows or near all-time lows. And as far as other predictions concerns, I do believe that a lot of signs are going to be coming up that even though things are going to get very turbulent, we may see signs that there's going to be a vision for the next future. And yeah, I do think supply chains are going to be an issue. I don't think it's going to be as bad as they are now. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's just hard for me to see that. As far as other problems are concerned, homelessness, I think it's going to get worse, absolutely, because not just, I would say, with the housing issue, but more importantly, because of drug addiction, because of alcoholism, these tough times. You're going to start seeing homeless people start popping out in places that you could have never imagined. I mean, I'm seeing this in like the southwest part of the valley, but we could see this pop out even in Henderson and in Summerlin. Look, I've seen some homeless with the areas in Summerlin several months ago. Absolutely. As far as water concerned, look, there's been a lot of rains in the western United States. I do think the problem is going to tone down, but I don't think the problem is just going to be completely ignored. Certainly there's the possibility that, maybe water rates are going to start going up. There's just no question about it. But again, is that mainly because of the growth of the Las Vegas area? No, because remember, they only use a very tiny portion of the water supply. And last but not least, rents, I think, are going to be a major concern. Now, regarding job losses from the housing market, I think that's really going to take place in 2023 if the mortgage rates go up and they start slowing down the housing market. But rents is a very difficult subject because remember, you have a lot of people that really have not paid their rents. And I think as a result, that's resulted in low supply and landlords raising their rent because they want to make up for their lost expenses. And that's very reasonable. However, if we start seeing a lot of people being evicted and a lot of supply coming in, not to mention of all the new construction, we can definitely see absolutely some contractions in the rental housing market. I do think they've jacked up too much. But remember, bottom line is Las Vegas doesn't have a serious land shortage problem. It's not very difficult to build things out here. And again, it's not like the area has a huge supply of good paying jobs. Okay? It's just not. And as a result, you don't really have what you need to support high rents. If the rents get too high, people are just going to be like, forget it. Maybe if I'm a work-at-home person coming from California, I'll probably just go to some other state. Because Nevada doesn't really have a lot to offer for not only high cost, but for dirty politics. You have to remember, one of the reasons why places like California, West Coast, the Northeast, they had dirty politics, but people are like, okay, there's corruption, I'm willing to take it, but hey, look where I'm living. But Nevada, especially Las Vegas, doesn't really have a lot to offer for all that. I'm just being honest with you. And I think that if they go to that level so far, like they did with the shutdowns and everything, let's just say at the same level as California, it's going to bite them a lot harder. The consequences are probably going to be a lot more severe. Because people are in California, they're like, no, okay, it's really bad with Newsom, but hey, I'm living by the beach. I'm willing to take it. What do you have in Vegas? Let's just be honest here. It's really hard for me to see rents are just going to keep skyrocketing. Like you'll see median rents at $1,500. there's just going to be so much pushback. There's just going to be so much contraction. And let's just say if we do, well, it's probably likely we're going to see a lot more people park on the street corners living in their RVs and in their cars. Let's be honest here. Things are going to look very shaky in Las Vegas, and we know how fragile things are in that town. Yeah. All right, do you guys have any comments, suggestions? I'm just going to keep waiting for about a minute. What do you guys think? I'm just going to stay here right here. What do you guys think? Have any updates? What do you think? Do you think rent prices are going to start coming down and going to go up? Are politicians going to be arrested? I mean, you can just kind of tell by looking at Sizzalak what a shady son of a gun he really is. It's absolutely insane. And yeah, it's unbelievable. Do you need to make announcements when I go to protest? Yeah, I will consider doing that. I don't do very well in creating a protest, but that's another thing I wanted to tell you. Whenever there's an event going on, especially public event, I'll let you know when I'll be heading there. Absolutely. Because it's very important to know, and again, when I go there, I don't like to go alone. I like to go with a group of friends, with my buddies on particularly Instagram. And what we do is we say, okay, we're going to go to this street, that venue, and please come. The more the merrier, absolutely. And I think our numbers are just going to continue to grow. I mean, there was barely any of this stuff in 2018. But when things really start to unravel, man, people are getting really frustrated. And honestly, I'm not really getting frustrated. I'm actually kind of enjoying this. But I feel so sorry for the people who've been frustrated and really didn't prepare well for all this. Absolutely. But as far as I know, I'm not going to take the jab at all. I'm willing even to hide in the bunker so they won't push me through all this. Man, the truth that's happening about what they're doing in other parts of the world, people are really seeing what's going on. It's really sad. Absolutely. And it makes you really think, do these politicians in our state, were they really thinking about this? Absolutely. Our great governor could have spent $10 million on homeless. Yeah, with a private jet. I know. It's again, this is why they keep promoting identity politics. Because all they have to do, and then use fake crisis issues to put fear and control people. And by the way, speaking of fake crisis, I just have to point out that I think climate change narrative is going to be in serious trouble. I mean, they're going to say, oh, yeah, well, climate change. Yeah, it was 67 degrees in Alaska recently. Yeah, but then there was a lot of record cold and snow temperatures along the West Coast. And remember the Texas freeze about a year ago? Yeah. It's funny because, yet speaking of private jet, they don't even live that lifestyle. It's unbelievable. And look, it's not like, honestly, it's not just whether the environment. It's like, even if I had the money, I wouldn't spend my money on this kinds of things. I mean, I could rent a private jet or something. But wow, it's just, these people have a fake sense of greed. And by the way, rumors I've heard that Jim Murren actually fled to Costa Rica. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these people start fleeing the country. I mean, it's just a record. A lot of these county commissioners, they've resigned. They've been prosecuted. It is no surprise. Absolutely. Got any more questions? Anybody? Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much. That is my predictions for Las Vegas 2022. Let's pray for a hopeful year. It's going to be very uncomfortable. Buckle up. Yeah, who I think will be the Republican nominee for governor? Like I said, I mentioned about 20 minutes ago. If Joey Gilbert does a good campaign, he can be the nominee. And I wouldn't be surprised if they commit fraud against him. Absolutely. Now, as far as Michelle Fiore is concerned, I almost forgot. Look, Michelle Fiore, she has some baggage issues. I have a lot of respect for her. She's a fighter. She has a decent track record. But just her style, her tone, I don't think it's that good, honestly. So I personally think she'd probably better off, I don't know, maybe running for mayor. Yeah, county commissioner, 80,000 a year salary. Thank you, Harry Reid and Dina Titus. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is how they get rich. They have insider deals. They have insider trading. Absolutely. This is why the county needs to be restructured. Heck, not only we could break up the counties, we can add more commissioners, or we can have a system where it allows we, the people, with a 60, 70% vote to overturn their bad policies. Because we, the people, get what we want. We don't even have that system because there's mass disapproval about the airport renaming, and the media just keeps like hyping it up. Have you noticed that? And then not to mention, when it came to the Red Rock development, a lot of mass disapproval. The sales tax hike, the stadium deal, a lot of different things. People are not happy. They're not getting what they want. It's not working. And it's up to you to really start fighting back. Now, you can do one thing. You can leave, and maybe they'll send a message. They'll make them look bad on their numbers. Or you can fight back. But I would do more than just complaining. I'd either spread the word, and if you leave, fight back in those states. Because those states could be in peril too. Absolutely. It's just absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, I hear people say that the state is demographically doomed. But it's really hard to say, because, we're starting to see changes in voting habits among many other non-whites. Yeah, they're the worst county commissioners. Yeah, Naft was even appointed. Yeah. I mean, I'm not really a fan of any of them. To be honest with you, I mean, I think Gibson is probably the lesser of the two flawed commissioners. But even back in the day where you had what's that? Larry Brown and what's the one before Chris G? They were decent. They weren't that bad. Man, I don't know what happened. It's just getting worse and worse every 2 years. I feel like the area has come downhill so much since 2014. Like that YouTube user, the Alchemist, that's his name. He commented just several minutes ago. It's gone so absolutely bad. Folks, bear with me. You guys really need to step it up. Absolutely. All right, it's midnight. I should probably get going to sleep. I'm not going to really worry about this. I'm 29 years old. I'm glad as somebody this young is pretty good. I don't think you were here during the Dario Heria or Enan. Yeah, I was not here, man. I think that was back in 2006, 2007. I mean, I really, really admired Las Vegas at the time. It was booming. But I was too young to really get this kind of stuff. I was really more like, okay, much of the status quo is pretty good. But how was I supposed to know? When you grow up, and especially when you move there, your perceptions change. They really do. And that's the really thing, because the problem, speaking of high cost of living, is a lot of young people, they don't grow up. The job market is not good. People are not happy with dating, cost of living, and you just have all these people around my age. They're just losers. They have nothing else to offer. It's a sad truth. They're sitting home playing video games or doing something else at their homes. We don't have a lot of strong people. And maybe, I've heard reports that the population's going to collapse or something. Well, maybe this is what we need. Because the strong survive and the weak just whizzle away. What's happening? I remember your days kicking. Yeah. Yeah, regarding the city of Cudahy. Yeah. Man, I miss those days. Absolutely. It's funny because those politicians in those areas weren't so pushy and not so afraid as the ones in the Las Vegas area. And here's the funny thing, Cudahy and a lot of those surrounding areas had large numbers of Latinos. Huntington Park, Downey. You look at Bellflower. Man, those areas, like, they weren't so run down as the immigrant Hispanic areas of Las Vegas. And what's even funny about all this is that Vegas is generally newer. I mean, the thing about that area was you had a good number of Latinos that were generally pretty better off. But, it really seemed like, that actually were, blending in with our culture. But not so much in Vegas. They just mainly come here to clean hotels and do construction work, which jobs are really going to be in danger in 2 decades, especially with technology. That's the sad truth. It's just, I don't know, man. I think that the technology factor, and that's another prediction I want to talk about, is it's going to have a lot of impact on immigration very, very soon. So we have to really, really look into all this. I do think there's going to be a lot of pushback. They had to reinstate remain in Mexico. They're building the border wall in Texas. States and everywhere have to be fighting back. Trump's have to be more open-minded and young conservatives. Yeah, that's true. But that is changing. That is absolutely changing. It's not just being the party of just, old-fashioned, elderly, whatever kind of party. It's not really like that anymore. In fact, that's one of the reasons why in a lot of elections they don't do very well. People just say, oh, well, it's just election fraud or mass campaign donors. But hey, if you don't campaign well, you really have to just blame yourself. That's the truth. And I've seen it. Dems do a pretty good job at campaigning. Now, some of them, they don't do much campaigning because you can kind of tell that they don't put a lot of signs. They don't have a lot of rallies. But campaigning is still very important. All right. I got to get going. Thank you guys so much. Hope to hear from you guys soon. And stay tuned for my video regarding my forecast regarding investments, stock market, commodities, bonds, a lot of other things. Definitely, it's very, very important. Cryptos. See you guys soon. That's why I lost so. Yeah, he never campaigned in Vegas. Yeah, he was a lousy. I have a feeling Laxalt was a plant. And that's why I really don't want him to actually run for Senate. I think there are better candidates. I mean, just if you talk to him, you can just kind of tell that he's just some kind of, seems like a pretty sleazy guy. Let's be honest here. And I don't know why he gets a lot of these endorsements. Unbelievable. Yeah. And I think he just really wanted to hand it over to Sizzlack.